there's going to be a break away from mainstream society. There's going to be a break away from the carnality. Because we're being called to holiness, and by being called to holiness, we're also being called to spirituality. But here's the difference. Because when it comes to spirituality, we talked about this too. Spirituality has a duality. There are two sides. You can be of spirituality, but you can be a son of the darkness. See? Because there's certain ways, there's certain teaching that are still spiritual in essence, but this is all legislated by the opponent, that old serpent. But then you have the spirituality on the side of the son of light, the seed of Elohim, which again is split from the rest of the world. Different. So when you look at Israel, Israel will not eat like everybody else eats. See? But not only is he talking about the food, let's look at what he said about these particular animals. Why did he give specifics about this animal and that animal and this animal and that animal? Let's go back up. So he names 3 of them that chew the cud but don't have a parted hoof. Think about this. So we need to talk about what chewing the cud is first. Now we got these two. To ascend. See, even the use of this term now is supposed to be revelatory, if you will. Because this is the exact same term, Allah, where we get the term Olah from. If you remember when we were talking about the sacrifices, the very first sacrifice was that whole burnt offering, which is considered to be the Olah, or the ascension offering. Think about that. So what I was doing, remember, we're making some comparisons now. How are we making comparison? By the usage of different terms. It's like contextual clues, if you will. That's how Abba has designed his word. But here's the thing. He's got to be the one to weave and to make these connections for us. So the fact that you have this term Allah, which means to bring up, similar to the garar, to bring up, now you're talking about an elevation, okay? Not just in the context of, well, this animal is able to bring up the food, regurgitate, chew some more, and then swallow it. It's not just about that. Even when you get into the definitions, right? The word garar, one of those definitions, it says that is ruminate. See, ruminate doesn't only have the meaning of chewing the cud. Ruminate also has the definition of the turnover of thought. And basically, ruminating is thinking. What is it that we're ruminating on? What is it that we're thinking on? So here's the characteristic. These are the people. This is what he's saying. These are the people that you can be associated with, Israel. They have to have a split hoof, be cloven-footed. In other words, their walk has to be different from the rest of the world. But not only does their walk have to be different from the rest of the world, they have to be ruminating. They have to be bringing up my word. But not just bringing up my word in the sense of just thinking about it. The fact that they are thinking about it is going to cause another reaction. It's going to cause them now to elevate or to ascend. Let's go to something else Brother Shaul said. He says, in Romans chapter 12. Let's go, and I believe we looked at that last time too. But now we're going to get to the second verse. Romans chapter 12, I'm going to start at verse 1 just for the purpose of leading into it. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Elohim, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. Okay? Living sacrifice is what they refer to as an oxymoron. Two opposites. Because living implies, that's what it says, to be alive, but sacrifice implies to be put to death. So we are a living sacrifice. We are alive, meaning we have physical life, but there's part of us that has to be put to death. What is that part of us? The human nature. Remember, we talked about human nature. We talked about that carnal mind, which is enmity. That's what has to be put to death. That's why the scripture said to mortify the deeds of the flesh. That's That's what we're getting rid of. Why? Because now when we receive Ruach HaKodesh, as we've discussed, that is the Spirit of the Son, the Spirit of the Word of Yah, now dwelling in us and now taking up residence and living through us. Brother Shaul said it like this. He said in one place, I die daily. Meaning, whoever Brother Shaul or Brother Paul was, he's dying daily. But then he says in another place, he said, it's not I, but it is Mashiach or Messiah in me. So now, as Brother Paul, he's dying. At the same time, Messiah, Yahushua, is growing. That is what's supposed to take place in each and every one of us. And how does that happen? Let's go to the next one. Let's continue this. He said, I beseech you therefore, brother, by the mercies of Elohim, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, right? The body has to be holy. The physical body has to be holy, meaning we do not want to consume what Abba deems to be unclean. Acceptable unto Elohim. Remember the ways of acceptable approach. We, in essence, are becoming that sacrifice. Becoming the offering to be presented to the Most High. That's what's happening with us. He says, your reasonable service. But now here's our part. And be not conformed to this world. What does he mean by that? He's saying not to be in agreement with the world. In other words, there has to be a break. There has to be a split from the world and how the world functions. Israel is called to holiness. We can't be like everybody else. We have to be like Abba desires us to be. So what did he do? He gave us the basic instructions before leaving earth. See? And he only gave it to Israel. That's going back to our pillars, right? When it comes to understanding the Torah, the third pillar is the acknowledgement that Abba entrusted his word to Israel, period. I don't care what country you come from. I don't care what your culture said. He gave his word to Israel. Anything that anybody else has said, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, it doesn't make a difference. Abba chose who he chose. And he delivered his word to whom he delivered it to. Now what's supposed to happen, once Israel gets it together and starts living according to those instructions, according to the Torah, the rest of the world's supposed to watch and see what it is that Abba does with this people. And once they see that, now I want to be a part of what this people is doing. But what the problem is, Israel is living not according to the word of Yah, not according to the Torah. They're living according to the interpretations of the word. See? Whether you be Orthodox, whether you be Reconstructionist, whether you be conservative, whether you come from this camp, whether you come from that camp. You understand? Divided. And by being divided, what happened? Divide and conquer. But once Israel becomes united, and when it comes to the unity of Israel, it's not us locking arms and just joining each other and walking down the street in some military form. The true unity of Israel comes one person at a time. You know how? Once that one individual has a relationship with the Creator and has that connection, and once another individual has a relationship with the Creator and has that connection, we may not even meet each other. And I'm talking about in person. But guess what? We one and the same. Because you're being fed by the exact same source that I'm being fed from. We're not going to come together and disagree. We're going to come together and we're going to end each other's sentences and begin each other's sentences because it's one spirit. Now, I'm not saying it in the context like people think about like the Stepford wives and things like that. No, it's not like that. But we're going to understand one another. Like they say today, we're going to feel one another. You see what I'm saying? But let's go on. Let's continue. He says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, why did he say the renewing of our mind? Think about that. The mind is being renewed. If something is being renewed, that means it's being made new again. So when something is being renewed, that means it's also being brought back to its original form. Similar to what people would say, what people would say about the restoration of like an old vehicle. You know, if a car is being fully restored, you have all the original parts. And I used to work in a carburetor remanufacturing plant years ago. And what they do, the old carburetor piece comes in, and it's all on the assembly line. When we get them, it's being broken down, put on the line. And some people take this piece, some people take that piece. What my task was, I was supposed to get all the little intricate pieces, the little pipes and the little screws and all these types of things. So once I get them, excuse me, what I do, depending on the carburetor, I separate them all. Okay, and now they had, you ever seen an engine? So you know it's all dark and gritty and dirty. So now what I got to do, I got to take it in and I got to sandblast them and get them clean. See? Then I got to put them in some solution and get all the sand off of them. And then I got to separate them and put them in the proper bin. And then whoever's once every part goes through, you got the big pieces as well. Once all of that sand blasted and put into the solution and cleaned up, then it goes to the other section. And then once it gets to the other section, I have to have my little pieces cleaned up so I can have them over to them, hand them over to them so that they can reassemble the carburetor. And then it goes to testing, etc., etc. But anyway, you're talking about the restoration. So when we talk about the renewing of the mind, our mind has to be brought back to its original state, like it's just been brought off the factory or the showroom floor. Okay? Now, in order for that to happen, listen to what he said. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove. See? Prove to who? We are spectacles. See? People are watching. That you may prove what is that good and what acceptable and what perfect will of Elohim. Israel is called to holiness. So when we are partaking of certain animals that are the split hoof and cloven footed, that chew the cud, what it's pointing to is pointing to the character. These are the people who live lives separately, but not just, because we live in another place different from other people. You can be separate and still live among them. Think about the Messiah. The Messiah, he ran into some issues with the Yahudim of his day. They would come against him and they would talk to him as, you're sitting and you're eating with publicans and sinners, as if that was a bad thing. But what he told them, he said, those are the ones that need me. So he didn't live separately away from the publicans and sinners. They're the ones he was rubbing elbows with. Those are the ones that he was giving the word to. He was planting seed, giving water, giving increase. That's the exact same thing we're supposed to be doing. Not just by word of mouth, but when they see us living our lives and see how we don't live like the rest of the world. We live separately. And then when they hear us talk, what are they going to hear? They're not going to hear the carnality. No, because that's not what's ruminating. That's not what's being turned over in your mind. It is the word that's being ruminated. It is the word that's being turned over. So it's renewing. Think about the wheels turning and spinning, okay? And that word, and what's happening now, just look at it this way. It's like, once we start this process, it's like, you out with the old, see? And as the wheels are turning, and you keep going over that word and going over that word, it's out with that old. What is the old? That old nature, that carnal mind. But it's being replaced at the same time. What is it being replaced with? It's being replaced with the Torah. It becomes what we think. See? When we were younger, they used to have these commercials come on about food. And one of the things they said about the food, it says, you are what you eat. I'm going to leave y'all with that one. If we are what we eat, why would we want to eat anything that the Most High deemed as being unclean? See? Not only for health reasons either. As somebody reminded me a little while ago, this is not just a healthy diet. This is a holy diet. See, we've got to come to understand how Abba's word works. When he said these are what you can eat and this is what you can't eat, those animals that we can eat, you know what the word just did with those? It sanctified them. It made those animals holy by saying, this is acceptable to me. So when we eat what's acceptable, so long as we don't overindulge, when we eat what is acceptable, guess what? It is sanctifying the body. Because Abba said, that's what it is. Now we're going to stop right here for the day. And we pick up again next time. Hallelujah. Beshem. Yahushua HaMashiach. Abba, I give praise, glory, and honor to your holy and to your most precious name for the blessing and the opportunity, Abba, that you have afforded me at this time, at this moment, to stand before you, to stand before your people, to teach your word. I pray that your word was brought forth according to your divine will and that it does not fall upon deaf ears. But those who receive this word, Abba, I pray that it provide nourishment and strength for their hearts, for their mind, that they be not conformed to this world, but that we may all be transformed by the renewing of our hearts, the renewing of our minds, that we may all prove what is holy, what is acceptable, and what is good before those who are watching. I humbly and sincerely ask thee to forgive us all for the sin we commit against you, and to cleanse us all by the blood of Yahushua of our iniquity, and to strengthen us all by your Spirit to be obedient servants and submissive to your divine will. Beshem Yahushua HaMashiach. Hallelujah. Amen.